Go.
The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers. United Chargers presents the Grizzly range of EV chargers. There's the original Grizzly Classic, a powerful, heavy-duty, portable EV charging station built to withstand the toughest conditions. The Grizzly Duo, a dual-port unit designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a small portable charging station built with an indoor-outdoor rated cast aluminium enclosure. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. All Grizzly chargers come with a convenient 24-foot cable and the ability to adjust the current from 16 amps all the way up to 40 amps. That's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, they're IP67 rated. Built in Canada with the highest quality materials. Order yours now at unitedchargers.com. That's unitedchargers.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Batteries Included podcast. It's December the 29th, 2023, and this is episode number 17. Thanks for joining us. On today's show, we'll be talking about all the electric vehicles that went on sale in the US for the first time in 2023. And of course, much, much more. I'm Dominic Yoni, host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic. Joining us today is the spectacular Mr. Tom Malogny, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the mastermind, Mr. Martin Lee, from the EV News Daily podcast, which is available on all the best podcast platforms. And of course, Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Autospec Studios, where he produces high voltage videos for a number of YouTube channels. Hey there, everybody.
Morning.
Good to see you all.
Good morning.
So have we had a good 2023?
Yes.
I think so.
I mean,
Up and down, but it's been all right.
okay. Well, I mean, it's almost over. So if it sucked, it's almost time to put it all behind us, and have a fresh look at next year. But so yeah, I guess in this episode we want to look at all the electric vehicles that kind of debuted in this past year. But before we do that, I want to talk about Kyle. You've put out a couple of videos this week that I think we should kind of just touch on, not too deep in depth, because you have the videos up there so people can go and watch and get the full story there. But see, it's not no, that's not what we have. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my things here. All right, so I was thinking about Rivian, because you had some Rivian videos, but before I mentioned that, it's not on our list because it debuted a few years ago, but the Audi SQ8 e-tron just got a refresh, and you had a go in it with some of the out of spec crew, and it looks like a great video. So this is the spicy tri-motor version of the Q8, so people should check that out. But I just want to hear what your top line thoughts are about it, because I think it was like a bit surprising in some ways.
Yeah, we discussed it on the show as well. I'm trying to think, few weeks ago, something like that. We did like an SQ8 episode, but it's quite expensive and it's not that fast, but it's really good looking and it handles really well with the tri-motor system. So it's really for a very small subset of people that only includes me, because you have to want a big SUV that can also absolutely rip in the canyons and is tuned unbelievably well, and it's really cool. So we won't spend too much time on it. We did a whole video on it. The summary was basically like, this really makes me want to use the e-tron S for half the price or less.
Sure. You say it's not very fast, but doesn't have like a 4.4 second 0 to 60. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and it costs more than a Model X Plaid that has 1,000 horsepower. So, it's not fast comparably to its competition. It's just not, it's not up there.
So I wonder if these will be for sale real cheap on the used market.
Absolutely. I mean, just look at the first gen e-trons. These will do the same thing. So I kind of usually don't recommend leasing, but it might make sense for whoever's getting it first, lease it, assuming it's got a good residual, and go from there. They're going to be in very short supply, very limited production for our market. It's really just for like the Audi enthusiast. Okay. And we won't spend too much time on it.
Yeah. Well, they should kind of make it tight, I guess, to keep just to keep the values, maybe the value of it up possibly for after sales. I don't know.
Certainly.
I mean, it'd be good for owners at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it sucks to buy a car, like an expensive, spend 100 grand or whatever on a car, and then a couple of years later, it's like worth 40 grand. It's like kind of that's a lot to.
Yeah, luxury car shoppers have been accustomed to it. It was just the last few years were crazy,
Right.
where that didn't happen.
Right. Thank you, Kayvon, for that super sticker. Let's see. So, more importantly, though, you also put out a couple of videos featuring the Rivian R1T. So, first, you did a 70-mile-an-hour highway range test with 2 fresh trucks, one with the large pack that we've had for some time, and one with the new Max pack that they say we just started getting recently. So, what kind of results did you get this, and why did this end up with? Why did you end up making 2 videos about it?
Well, and we have more coming as well. I have charging tests and some other things coming. Basically, yeah, we had a Max Pack Rivian to test. I asked them for the longest range Rivian on the market. They sent us one, and it's an R1T on 21-inch wheels with the tonneau cover. And of course, spec'd with the Max Pack. We have so much content on this truck on the Out of Spec Reviews channel that we've really covered it so in depth. But the high level overview is, Rivian promised a 400-mile truck years ago, and they've now delivered a 400+ mile EPA rated vehicle. The only problem is they did it in the like lamest way possible by doing a chemistry upgrade to the large battery pack. So they went from the Samsung 50G to the 53G, which is about a 6% energy density increase, and they charged the customer $10,000 for roughly 11 kilowatt hour benefit. And they promised a 400-mile truck, they delivered it, and it's all good. I'm not saying anything's wrong here. I'm just saying we got a 22.5-mile difference at 70 miles an hour. You have to really want that 22-mile range difference, about 7% we found in the real world, to make up that difference. And that's just a tough sell. And ultimately, I had to do a lot of digging, and I had to do a lot of testing and research, because just before we did our 70-mile-per-hour highway range test, Rivian called and said, "We think there's an issue with your truck. Are you going to post your results?" And they never specifically said, "Don't post your results." I want to make that super clear. They were just like, "There's an issue. Are you going to do it? We can get you another one at some point next year." And I'm just like, well, what's wrong with our truck? And they couldn't tell me what was wrong with it. And I actually held the video. I think I said 2 days in one of our content. I think I waited 5 days for a response as to what was going on with it. And then throughout that process, I made sure nothing was wrong with it. So I ran it side by side against our large pack, which again, the same trucks, just a chemistry change. Efficiencies were identical, so we knew there was nothing drivetrain or aero related to our vehicle. And then I wanted to make sure that we got the correct battery capacity out of it. And I referenced other Max Pack owners as well as the EPA documents, digging deep. And I just put up a 50-minute video yesterday digging through all of the documents. Dominic helped me a ton with all of this. We were up late one night digging through all these things. And, we basically pulled 143.3 kilowatt hours out of that truck, out of 149 kilowatt hour gross pack. And I just wanted to make sure that we weren't missing 3, 4, 5 kilowatt hours somewhere. And turns out we actually beat the EPA results in terms of how much energy we got out of it. So I'm fairly confident, and I'm pretty much 100% confident that we got all the energy the battery was supposed to have, and we matched the efficiency it was supposed to have. Therefore, we posted the results of our truck. What that issue might be, I'm not sure. I took it to the Rivian service center. They couldn't find anything. I did as much digging as I could, and no engineer still has called me to tell me what the problem was with the truck, which makes me think there was no problem that at least would affect our results. So we posted everything. I have to say, it doesn't look great for Rivian, but that's the story.
I mean, it doesn't look great for people who are maybe thinking the Max Pack was I don't know. It doesn't look as like a great value in that light. If you just look at it as just purely as the range difference, I'm not sure if there's any other way of looking at it besides looking at the range difference that it gets you over the large pack.
Right. And we should say our test is a highway range test, which is where I think range matters in a vehicle. If you're driving around the city, maybe unless you're an Uber driver, the total range you can get in the city to me doesn't matter at all, but to many people doesn't matter as much. And one thing we found digging through the EPA documents was that the Max Pack is more efficient in the city. And I wish I still had it to do some more tests, but I couldn't figure out what out of this whole package would make it more efficient at low speed in the EPA tests until we had the idea that maybe Rivian is putting the silicon carbide inverter on the rear motor of the Max Pack, because they have two versions of their permanent magnet motor. They have a silicon and a silicon carbide. Silicon carbide is much more efficient, especially under light loads. And again, when we're doing the highway portion, the rear motor is disconnected the whole time because it has an automatic clutch disconnect on the rear axle. So the highway difference in the EPA test and in our test showed the same efficiency, but in the city, it might do better. Again, does it matter? I don't know. Again, it's 10 grand, but it means that while towing, maybe while in sport mode, you will get some benefit with the Max Pack that I'd like to quantify at some point, but we're talking small percents here.
Right. Jordan chimes in with some good information. Kyle in the large pack finished range test at McDonald's. I had enough range in the Max Pack to get me a few more miles to Chili's. Definitely worth it. Always looking for the silver lining. That's great. Thank you, Jordan.
That's really the difference between the trucks, if we're honest. That's how much range we're talking about.
That's worth 10 grand, if you ask me. That's definitely easily worth 10 grand. So
I mean,
I think it's good that we don't get that, by the way, over here. So I'm sure it's a fine establishment. I think it's a good thing that they reached out to you and they communicated with you, which some car makers do and some car makers don't. It's a shame they didn't provide more details, because I imagine a lot of the communications people that work in the auto industry might be giving out cars to some outlets or some mainstream press or whoever, and there's a problem, we'll get you a new one, and they'd be happy with the answer. Whereas some communications people are trained up to a level that they could come back and say, I don't know, the engineers spotted a pressure drop in the glycol coolant, and Kyle's going to go, great, tell me more. Whereas most people would be like, I don't care, just give me a new car. So it would be nice to have that a deeper level of communication with the car makers, especially if you put out a video or review, or any of us ever say anything negative about something. It's always going to be founded in an honest belief, an honest opinion, evidence or data that was collected. And if anyone at Rivian watched a video and thought, oh man, it could be could be seen in a certain light, I wish it was more complimentary or whatever, like I wish people were saying nicer things about the Max Pack, well, come on the podcast, you're going to get a friendly reception here. The audience will be a friendly reception. Anyone's welcome on this show anytime, or any of the communications people can kind of just do what they do and just give us all the details, because we lap this stuff up. We want to know more.
So yeah, my guess is I think we proved there was no fault with our truck, to way more than we needed to actually post the results. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we could have just said, here's the truck you gave us, and we're going to post the videos on this particular truck. But I didn't want to post something that wasn't representative. Again, I don't want to dig. I did a whole podcast yesterday. It's on the Out of Spec Reviews channel with Francie for an hour, showing every bits of information that Dominic and I found and other friends and I found. And I don't know, Tom, what's your opinion? You're a Rivian owner as well. Would you expect, there is a benefit to the Max Pack. You do get more range. It just seems minimal.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is I'm on Team Mickey D's. I'll take the shorter range, get my McDouble and a Diet Coke, and I'm happy. I don't need to go to Chili's. But the food aside, we always talk about you get the right tool for the job. For me, here where I live in New Jersey, drive up and down the East Coast, there are chargers that I've said this before on the show. A 300-mile range EV like my Lightning or the Rivians, the R1T I own, the R1S, is more than enough than I ever need. And my test is, for me personally, is can it make my in-laws up in Vermont? And both the Rivian and my Lightning can do that with the large pack, the Rivian large pack R1S I have. So for me, it's nuts to even consider 10 grand for an extra 20, 25 minutes, even if it was 30 miles. If it was like a $2,500 option or a $3,000 option, I might offer it. I might think about it just because I'll say, hey, you never know that one time 2 years from now where I needed an extra 15 miles to get to that charger. But I don't live out in the Midwest. I'm not regularly driving 300 to 500 miles. And I understand for those people, it might be worth paying a ridiculous amount of money for an extra 25 miles. You have to use the right tool for the right job. And, as far as Kyle wanting to make sure that he was doing the right thing by posting this. You know, he did his research. He called me. We were talking to me. I think he called Brendan Flash. He called Dominic. He was just like, before I post this, I want to make sure I'm not missing something here. Like, am I doing Rivian a disservice by posting this? I think everybody told him, no, you've fully investigated this. You've done more than what you need to do, more than what other journalists do. Other journalists, they're out tweeting before you're even plugging in the car to recharge it. Look what just happened, you know. So to Kyle's, you know, ethics, I think he went over and above this, and I think he kind of proved that this is what you're going to get with MaxPack. Unless Rivian comes back with something that we're all missing and saying, hey, you know, oh, that problem, we forgot to put 10 kilowatt hours in the battery. You know, like, you know, there's a big hole in your battery pack. The guy just forgot to put a whole bunch of cells in there. But I mean, obviously that's not the case. You know, I think you went above and beyond, and you provided a great service here. You know, what you do with your testing goes way beyond what like the established guy, Motor Trend, Road and Track Car, all those guys. You know, you really provide a service doing these deep dives, and I knew you were serious when you were making the calls and saying, am I missing something here, or should I go with this? So great job on that. You know, I recommend super nerdy stuff, but you'll learn a lot about EVs listening to Kyle's deep dives when he does stuff like this. And it's not for everybody. You know, everybody doesn't want a 50-minute deep dive on battery chemistry and EPA documents and everything. Let's face it, you know, and but the people that do, it's the only place you could get it. So good work on that.
It's pretty interesting seeing it in those EPA documents. You know, after spending like so much time looking closer, it's kind of fun to look at them with somebody else too, because you know I looked at them and you can get lost in all these numbers and strange acronyms that you don't really know. But, you know, working with somebody else is kind of, because I could maybe figure a little bit of something here. Then Kyle's got some pieces over here. And then it all kind of comes together a bit. It was kind of interesting to see that. For one thing that we noticed that the battery, because a lot of on these EPA applications for certifications, they always say how big the battery is, right? They give you the nominal voltage and then the amp hours. And you got to find those and multiply them and get the actual, you know, the capacity in watt hours or in kilowatt hours. And it looks like Rivian actually puts out the gross pack capacity rather than because I'm pretty sure everybody else does the nominal, you know, capacity. So that was just one of those little differences. So that's, you know, it's just kind of nerdy little things that came across.
Yeah, that was really fun. And you know, like multiplying amp hour times nominal voltage isn't the best way to get the most accurate result, but it gets us close enough. And we knew that was gross capacity because it was such a difference to what Rivian was showing they were getting out of their trucks and others. And we figured it out. We got it sorted. And yeah, I feel pretty confident about it. And I just want to post the charging test, and then we'll move on from MaxPack. I do at some point want to get another MaxPack and a large pack and do a towing situation, because that's where you will, if our theory, and this is just a theory, a shot in the dark, if that rear motor does have silicon carbide, which, talking to the Rivian engineers when I went to Normal to review the dual motor system, is a possible configuration. They didn't tell me which ones will have it, but they're like, in some trucks we'll do dual silicon carbide and some will do it just in the front. And I'm like, okay, this kind of all makes sense. You will get some benefit while either in sport mode or towing or around the city whenever that rear motor is engaged.
There has to be something, because they can't sandbag the EPA tests, Kyle. There has to be something there for some reason that it gets, because the EPA docs show it gets a lot more range.
Well,
so there has to be some situation. I didn't see your video on that. There has to be some situation where it performs well in the specific EPA test cycle.
Right. So the R1S and the R1T have a different gap from large to MaxPack. And again, we really should move on. But Dominic and I actually found that they never tested an R1T 21-inch MaxPack in their EPA testing. And R1T is always slightly more efficient than R1S. But they used the R1S range numbers for the R1T large pack, sandbagging it by about 10 miles or so, roughly. And that makes the gap to MaxPack in R1T look artificially bigger than it actually is. So you think you're getting a almost 60-mile range difference when in reality it's only about a 48-mile range difference if you were to run the same test truck for truck. So the only way we can actually compare large and max pack in terms of the EPA testing on 21-inch wheels is on R1S is the only way. And there's some other stuff too, like they ran the 2-cycle on the 20-inch wheels. It's not a big deal. It's just an interesting thing that we found versus the 5-cycle on the other ones. We're talking maybe 1% difference. Doesn't really matter, but just little things. And I shared all of that. So that's in that video.
EPA needs to standardize one test and have every vehicle do the same test. It's ridiculous that automakers can decide which test they want to run. And they run one test on some of their vehicles and another test on their other vehicles. So you're like, okay, why was that? Like, does this specific vehicle perform better and under these conditions? So they're going to run that. It's not transparent. EPA just certify one freaking test and make all the vehicles do it. I don't know. It's crazy that we don't have that.
We need a good test here, and then we need to send it to Europe for the Europeans. I just spent so there was a post on Threads yesterday. This lady in Ireland had a VW ID3. It's rated for 453 kilometers on the WLTP, and she had this, drive maybe 250 kilometers, like a lot less distance than that. It's like, and she couldn't really make it. She had to stop the charge, or like it was 5%, but it was just the difference is like just not acceptable, really. If you think if you put it in mileage terms, if you can go 250 miles, but in reality you're only doing 150, that's a significant difference, and you need to be able to plan for that. So
the thing is, they're just not comparable tests. We just need one that is every EV is run in this situation. Yes, there are compromises by doing that. But I feel like we can mostly agree that range matters on the highway. Right. And so it should be more skewed towards highway. And, oh, by the way, Mr. Customer, as a benefit, if you drive in the city a lot, you'll get significantly more range. Yeah. When have we ever heard of anyone getting a lot more range than EPA? It happens very rarely. It happens with the Germans sometimes, BMW, Taycan. But it's just, at least WLTP is a bit more consistent of a test. I agree with that.
Right. But like you said, we should move on. I just want to touch on this other thing that Kayvon asked us earlier with a super question. Thoughts on the Audi battery and charger recall. So there's 2 Audi recalls right now, I guess. One is the power outlet. A power outlet may cause charging cable to overheat, which doesn't sound like it's necessarily the cable's problem, but they do tell you not to use the portable cable on 110, I believe. Oh no, owners are advised not to use the 220 volt / 240 volt compact portable charging cable, and only use the 110 home charging cable on public charging stations. So don't use the big 220 portable charging cable, only the 110 for now. Dealers will supply a new 220 volt 240 volt compact charging cable with an incorporated temperature sensor free of charge, and you'll get some letters about that in February sometime. I'm not sure exactly how that all works out. And the other one, I'm not really sure about the battery recall. I couldn't really find anything.
It's about 200 Taycons, I think, affected. You'll hear from your dealer. It's not a huge deal. Sucks if you're involved, but I'm not sure anyone's had any problems with that. It's just a precautionary one. It's a small amount of Taycons.
And also e-trons had a cell.
The e-tron RS or e-tron GT had a cell.
I thought it was full size e-tron.
Well,
I thought it was fat e-tron that had the issue.
It may have been, but also the Audi e-tron GT.
Yeah, that probably shares the Taycan issue.
Right. It was like efficient sealant on the high voltage battery for that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that nothing's uncommon here. Cars break. We see recalls. They'll be fixed. Audi knows that if there's an issue, there's a recall. It'll get fixed at some point soon, hopefully. And shit happens.
It does, though, right? It's every machine will break one day, and if it happens to you, if yours is the food mixer that breaks on Christmas Day, you're going to be furious. But I hope no one's dead.
What was that? Sorry, what was that turn of phrase? Sorry.
What?
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah.
All machines will break.
Bill is saying it's all e-trons have a battery recall, which means ours does, and we'll cover that story, of course. Seems interesting. I wonder if they're going to replace all the battery packs or put software limiting on there. I think we just don't know the fix yet, and I don't think I have heard of a number of e-tron cell failures in the battery pack. There was a short period of time where there were 2 of them at our local dealer that sat for like 6 months on like bricked air suspension. They just look nasty. I'm like, what's going on? They're like waiting on new battery packs. So
he's got the. Unfortunately, in our chat, he shared it in our chat, but we can't copy and paste from our chat.
Yeah.
Look at which is.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to really do a deep dive into exactly what's wrong with it.
Right, but basically
under recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if it was super serious, we'd have heard more about it. Like a battery recall, it sounds like a big deal.
We don't hear a lot about it because it doesn't have Tesla in the name.
Yeah, that's
right.
also true. That is also true.
If Tesla had a battery recall on 2 cars,
everyone would know it.
Whoa!
I mean,
yeah,
and that's not because there's like a big conspiracy to get Tesla, like some people think.
No,
there lightning rod.
There absolutely is, Dominic.
No,
there absolutely is. There are journalists. I know them. There are many journalists out there who hate Tesla and hate Elon with a passion and will write any negative story they possibly can.
I think, but I mean, there's a.
When you come and disrupt an industry, you get a marker on your back.
Right.
Like,
but I think the bigger thing though is that Tesla just gets a lot of clicks. When you put Tesla in a title, you're kind of guaranteed to have more clicks than if it was an Audi in the title, like a lot more.
That's true.
And so online journalists are looking, they want the clicks. So they need
and
that
Tesla
money.
Problems do even better. Any type of Tesla recall, Tesla fire, Tesla whatever,
right. So if you're in news publishing and you get a Tesla problem, you might get that out there because you're going to get a bunch of clicks. And like you say, and also some people have a huge dislike of Elon Musk and also Tesla, because of some of the procedures or perceived procedures or attitudes, and they, it seems like some people only cover one company, like Tesla, and they miss the context of the rest of the auto industry, and so they make all these stories about Tesla doing this or failing at this and that, and just forgetting about all these other automakers have these same issues, problems at the plant, like the Tesla was sued for a racism situation at the Fremont factory. Other factories also have big HR problems, let's say, like fights, deaths, like all kinds of things go on.
You don't hear about it.
You don't hear about it. I mean, not to say that Tesla is in the right here or in the wrong there or not. I'm just putting that aside. I'm just saying.
I would also add, having spent the last 25 years in traditional media, I'm not an accredited journalist. We have a journalist union over here. One of the very few bits of the media that is unionized. For years as a presenter or manager, that was never an option for me. But the journalists over here are unionized. So it's very much a profession that you go and you study and you do all the law bits. And Tesla very famously don't like to talk to them. And so if you send a press inquiry to most organizations, they have whole teams of people that are there to soothe journalists, to pay them attention, to give them statements, because a journo needs to write the story, give a right to reply, and then the organization will come back with often a pretty bland line, but they can add that to their report. And if you send an email to X or you try and get hold of for a comment, then you're going to get a turd emoji sent back to you. And honestly, I know that puts journalists' nose out of joint. And so even if it's never happened to you, generally journalists don't like Elon Musk and Tesla because he doesn't like them. And so there is also, I think, an underlying, if they'd never admit to it, I believe it's there, that many journalists feel that some of them feel that they're in a more privileged position than others, that they sort of do an honorable profession, and many of them do. But when they have this company that is outspoken and says, we don't like journalists, we're not responding to you, we'll send you a turd emoji if you ask for us, and some of them even put it in their report. We approached Twitter for comment, and they sent this. As if like they're going to shame Twitter into like, that's a badge of honor for Elon Musk. And so I think that also plays into it as well. He doesn't play their game, and so they're almost out to get him in a way, even if they're just standing up for their cohort and their profession. So that genuinely that does exist. People want to see Tesla and Elon get a bloody nose whenever they can. That's true. That happens.
I think it's less likely they're less likely to hold back, you know?
Yeah.
Basically.
Or just play the game. Like some journalists do play the game as it well. I don't want to, there's nothing sinister going on, but there is a bit of a, sort of, they said this and they said that, and you got a lovely report all written and everyone said their piece and you've ticked all the boxes. And then Elon and Tesla say, well, no. Although they did respond to Reuters over that big Reuters report pre-Christmas or whenever it was.
They didn't respond.
They didn't respond to Reuters. They didn't like the report that came out, so they went for them on social media, and so it doesn't happen very often. But they did respond in that case with with their side, as it were. So there's always two sides to every story.
Right. I bet it would have made a lot of sense. They would have looked a lot better than if they had have replied to Reuters when Reuters got in touch with them looking for answers for whatever
Reuters
situation.
Often I think people in certain cases will publish the story regardless. And why would Tesla respond to something like that? That was pretty. It was pretty one way. And it was all based in truth. And so, there was an owner who had a very new car and they had a fault and Tesla told them to go do one. Sucks if they're them. And that's why the courts exist. So, if you really want to take, honestly, there's been, if you're on the Tesla forums and stuff like that, if you get to court day with Tesla, they settle. If you've had a really bad experience with Tesla and you unfortunately have to go, like we call it small claims court here, and it costs some money and you get all the way to court day, I've never known anyone apart from the big famous cases when Tesla actually go to court and follow it through. They always settle. If you go and say my paint job was rubbish, my battery was knackered, they'll settle. You just got to go all the way. And again, sucks. I've never had to do it. I'd be furious if I did.
Right. Well, let's look at some cars first. Let's look at so we had not a lot. So next week we're going to cover all the cars that are coming in 2024, and there are a lot of cars coming in 2024. Like, I'm not even sure how we're going to do this. We need to talk about how we're going to do this because there's like there's over a couple dozen cars. Because like for years we've been saying 2025 is going to be this big year. Well, a lot of the 2025 cars debut in 2024, so it feels like it's like the leading edge of a flood. Basically, it's the next couple of years are going to be the retail auto landscape is going to really change. When you walk into dealerships, there's going to be like product available that customers are going to be surprised if they haven't been in the dealership in a long time and then step into one. There's going to be a lot more electric products to choose from. So anyway, let's kick it off with the BMW i5. The sedan just started arriving at dealers at the end of October. My local dealer doesn't have one yet. It's a smidge larger than the Tesla Model S. Starts at $66,800 MSRP for the eDrive 40 rural drive. Kyle, you drove it. You got some top line impressions
on the i4.
The i5.
Oh, the i5. Sorry, I blanked out for a second.
BMW i5, eDrive 40, and also the M60. I'm not sure which you drove or both.
Yeah, I've driven both and driven both at length, and that is probably the best compromise of a luxury sedan, but also not being hugely expensive or hugely big, because of course the i7 that's almost Rolls-Royce level of quality. It's got this long hood and it is a bit of compromise to drive that car because it's just super flashy, the i7, and it's huge, and if you want really good comfort, you go for that. But I think the i5, it's the business class sedan is how BMW's always referred to the 5 Series. And it's true. It's like a great daily around town. It's the right size. You can fit 4 adults in there comfortably. I thought everything about the car was really good. I thought they toned down the styling from the crazy massive grills. I actually don't like it as much, but I think a lot of people do like it more. And, the quality was awesome. The driver assistance was incredible. One of the best driver assistance systems I've experienced on the highway was in this car. It's hands-free and even does lane changes with an eye gesture that you can basically confirm, yes, do the lane change without hitting a turn signal. That was cool. Has a slightly smaller battery pack than I'd like. I'd like to get it into a range test. I think it's somewhere around 80 kilowatt hours, if I remember correctly. But they left out like these divots in the floor like a Taycan where your feet can sit down so your knees aren't in your face. And very, very impressive car all around. Really enjoyed this one. And really enjoyed the base one more than the M60. The M60 overheated really quickly and wasn't actually like crazy sporty. I mean, it had great chassis dynamics, but the powertrain just overheats like crazy when you drive it hard.
Okay, so basically, this has to eventually replace the internal combustion 5 Series. Do you think it kind of does that?
Well, they sell an identical car with multiple combustion engines.
Right.
So they sell the 530, the 540, and now the top, what used to be the 550 is now the M60 electric version. And they also have a plug-in hybrid with DC fast charging and like 20 or 30 kilowatt hours. So this BMW, and they've done this for years, they're taking the one platform for all of the solutions, except what we thought that meant was everything's going to kind of suck. And I haven't driven the combustion ones, but at least the electric ones don't suck. They're magically efficient. They're extremely quiet. They seem pretty well sorted. And even though it's not a ground up electric chassis, what the engineers keep telling me is they built it as an EV first and then converted it to gas. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But it does seem to work in the real world.
Right on. Say, Tom or Martin, do you have any thoughts on the i5?
I haven't had a chance to spend any time with one, so not really. I'm going to defer to Kyle. The only thing that makes me chuckle a little bit is years ago, talking to one of the BMW product managers, told me bluntly, there will never be an i5. The 5 Series is our bread and butter, and you will not get an electric 5 Series. And I'm like, ever? And he said, ever. So wow. There it is. I forget who you were, but you were wrong.
Right.
That's all I've had.
I've had a lot of conversations with the BMW executives that sound like that for a future product. And I'm like, okay, see you in 5 years.
I love the look of the i4. I love the look of the i5. The i7's a different beast, and we'll get to that in a moment. Love the styling of these vehicles. Very conventional look. Efficiency, not the greatest, as Kyle says. 81 kilowatt hour battery. They pick out 205 kilowatt fast charging, but I can't remember the curve on the i4 or the i5. But yeah, they do everything really, really decently.
Yeah, I was really hoping to see this on the lot. I just went and did this video this week on the Drive Electric with Dominic channel. I visited all the dealerships in the Tallahassee area, like all of them except for Mazda, because Mazda doesn't have any EVs here in Florida. And yeah, there was no BMW i5, but what there was the i7. So let's talk about that for a second. So I walked into the showroom and I see the i7 for the first time, and this thing is huge. Like I saw pictures of it, but then there's a big difference between looking at pictures all day and then going out and seeing it in person. And this thing is 17.7 feet long. I looked it up. So it's about the same length as the 1977 Plymouth Fury that I learned to drive in. Basically, it's like a honking beast. And yeah, it was like, and super, luxurious inside. You look and peek in the windows, and it's pretty sweet. So this is an EV that shares a platform with an internal combustion version like the i5, but it doesn't seem to suffer, because of that too much. I don't think. It's expensive, like you'd expect, but I don't know. You drove this as well, Tom. Should Tom trade in his Bolt EV for this?
Yes.
So, yeah, I tell you, the people, I know you talk about expensive, but the people that are interested in a BMW 7 Series, this is right in their wheelhouse. And now they have an option. Do they want the combustion version? Do they want to go electric? And I tell you, a lot of people that play in this, say, arena as far as driving, they don't particularly do extraordinarily long road trips. They fly when they're going more than 300 or 400 or maybe 500 miles. So, that makes it even more attractive, in my opinion, for them to get out of a top of the line 7 Series and go for the electric. Automakers have been spending years trying to make their cars quieter, smoother. They spend millions in, reducing noise and vibrations in their combustion vehicles. And the EV just makes it so much easier. So, I just think the i7 is just a better 7 Series.
Yeah, it's quick too. It's like 5.3 seconds, 0 to 60. And you were talking about range. The range is like 300 miles and up, unless you get to like the M badge one, which is a bit lower, 274 to 291, depending on which wheels you have on it. But yeah,
charges nicely up to 40% state of charge, and it'll do road tripping really nicely.
Oh yeah, okay, that looks good.
Yeah, I've taken one on a road trip. Thought it was great. Really good efficiency, great handling, okay power. I mean, it's a 7 Series. It has to be great. They nailed it. It's awesome.
Right. I mean, I'd love to go on a road trip with that. That'd be freaking awesome. I need to get some CCS road tripping under my belt.
Yeah, you really should. It's interesting, and but the i7, oh, I love the i7. And you know what the move is in like 3 or 4 years buy like a off lease or used i7 M70, which is the real expensive top spec one, because you don't give up much comfort, but you gain a lot of performance and like cool options and colors and all this stuff. And they're really not going to be much more in the used market, is my guess.
Sweet, because that's $168,500 to begin with.
Base price. You can probably touch 200 if you spec one up, but they're just gonna hit a wall. So, and 7 Series owners are used to that. They don't care.
Right. I mean, I think if you can spend that much money on a car, you don't really worry about money too much.
And listen, Dom, you said you got to spend some time on road tripping CCS vehicles. I've got to. I know we're running behind here, but that's okay. I think people will hang out with us today, talk about the end of year cars. But I have a terrible story about CCS road tripping that I have to share with you guys. So my wife's cousin bought a C40, Volvo C40, loved it in the blue color. It's a great looking car. I know Kyle hates the Sportbacks, but she got the Sportback version. She didn't need the extra storage area and just loved how it looked. And she pretty much loved it. And it's interesting. She lives in Washington, D.C. area. She doesn't have the opportunity to charge at home. So for the last 6 months, she's been living with not charging at home and dealing with it, but it's been a little bit of a hassle. She's been a couple times where it's been inconvenient, but she's dealt with it. She did her first road trip 2 weeks ago to down in North Carolina, but like southern North Carolina, so it was a decent, I think it was 270 miles each way, something like that. And it was a disaster. And I wish she would have reached out to me. I might have been able to give her a few hints, but she didn't. And she's owned the car for 6 months. She's like, I can do this. I've been going to Electrified America, EVgo stations. She knows she knows how to use public charging. It's not like she just got it and did a road trip. Mm-hmm. So she and her fiance, who's pretty tech savvy, were like, yeah, we can do this, And it was such a disaster. She took the car back and made the dealer take it back after 6 months of ownership, and got a gas XC40. Wow. And no one in the family wanted to tell me that this has been going on. But they just over Christmas, I spent time with her mom and everything. And her mom's like, I got to tell you a story. She's like, she's afraid to tell you that this is what happened. Not afraid, embarrassed to tell you that this would happen, but she doesn't own the EV anymore. She went and traded it in for a gas EV. So to make a long story short, every station she went to, there were broken stations. There was a long line of people. She had to stop 4 times each way, which is ridiculous for a 270-mile one trip, because the station, one of the times it kept shutting off midway, so she had to stop at another station. And then of course, unless you're Kyle and I and a lot of people, a lot of people don't feel comfortable going under 10 miles, 10% battery state of charge on a road trip in an unfamiliar area, and so to make a long story short, it was a disaster. And one time when she had to go far between chargers, she decided she wanted to charge to 100%, and she's sitting in her car waiting, and a woman walks up to her and it's yelling at her for charging beyond 80%, which, we all know that, is not proper etiquette. But when you're having a very difficult road trip and you feel like, I don't know if I could make the next one, the efficiency was terrible. It was cold. She was probably driving fast. The car was loaded up with stuff. And everything was conspiring against her, and she said when she came home, her mom said she was nervous and upset for a week. And she's like, my car can't make me upset for a week after I drive it for a week, and so that there's an example of infrastructure holding back EV adoption. And someone's asked me, did they use PlugShare? They know all the apps. I've already told them, Better Route Planner, PlugShare. These aren't people that just have no clue how to use an EV. They're not maybe on our level, but they're better than 90% of the people that get in an EV. They understand how to use apps and charge and all this stuff.
Yeah. And you shouldn't have to be a genius to drive a car.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where we're at, guys, and this is why the whole industry bowed their head to Tesla and said, "We need your help."
Can I also add, it's because she doesn't do this regularly, and that's not her fault. But that's why. Because if any of us turn up to a fast charger and there's a queue, we immediately think, okay, well, I've got to do that work. I can check my emails, edit that video in some of our cases, or I can make that podcast. Or I know how this works. I've got stuff to do. I factored it into my journey, or maybe it's part of the story of the journey. If she road trips infrequently and her muscle memory is road tripping every 6 months with a gas vehicle, she absolutely expects to load up her vehicle, get to her destination, and it's not that far. I mean, she's right not to go deep into the Volvo pack, because when you're super low on that, it's scary on the highway. But it's not her fault. Like she shouldn't. If you're doing it week in, week out, you can cope with these things. But over the holiday period, it's busy, and the reason why she suffered so much is because she wasn't prepared for what the worst case scenario could be. And by the sounds of it, she had worse than worst case.
Yeah, it's. I didn't get all the details, but every stop she made, there was a problem. So one stop she couldn't charge because the chargers didn't work, and then to top it off, she had like this woman yelling at her because she was charging to a high percent. We all understand
Let's talk about that for a second though, because I feel like so whenever I see like a Bolt on a 350 kilowatt charger at like 8 kilowatts, right? I roll up to a station, I'm like, look at this Bolt being a Bolt. But I would never go up to someone and be like, you can't charge here. Now, if they were plugged in and collecting idle fees and not charging, I might, if there's no other stations, like tap the window and be like, hey, sorry, I don't know if you realized, but you're not actually charging. We got a couple cars here waiting. Would you mind moving, a few spots? But if they're accepting juice, they have a right to charge. We can only educate through our online platforms. It is of no use unless you strike up a conversation with them at the charger over something else to like scream at someone for charging above 80%.
Well, from what I understand, Kyle, so the person pulled next to them and got out of their car and was leaning against the window like this and looking at them in their car for like 20 minutes, before they said anything. And she's like, I can't live like this. I can't be afraid when I'm refueling that someone's going to attack me or I'm not going to make what I'm going. And that's all understandable. I mean, it reminds me of the time, and I've talked about this on the show, where the BMW i4 owner, a woman in an i4, pulled up to an Electrified America station, and it was all filled, and there were 2 people waiting, and she was like in a panic. She's like, I have to pick up my kids from school. I don't have enough to make it. And she asked them, would you let me charge in front of you? I just need to charge. And they're like, we've been waiting for 30 minutes. We got somewhere to go too. And she was like crying and like, I'm taking this back. This is it, and that's when I made my free EV charging sucks video, because the people that were charging there were there for like an hour and 10 minutes. There were ID4s. They were inside Target shopping, and the cars were at like 98%, and nobody was in a rush to go. And, and she's like, my dealer said I could charge anywhere, and once you get out there and you're using the infrastructure today, you learn quickly. It's not like pumping gas, and it's going to be a while before we get to that point. I think we're going to get there, but it's going to be a while before we get there.
Yeah.
I should also add, maybe we'll talk about it in another episode, but Alyssa's sister, Michaela, who bought an ID4, was also frustrated with the not able to charge at home, but and was okay charging at work until the work chargers went down, and they never fixed them, and they're still not fixed. And then she was relying on public infrastructure, and then she would go on a road trip and just like, I'm not dealing with this anymore, and just got a gas car. And I was like, I'll pay to upgrade your house so you could put a level 2 there. It's a rented house. We got a $5,000 estimate so she could put level 2 in. And I offered to pay. I was like, you know what? If you want to keep your car, like I talked you into this thing, I'll put a level 2 in your house. It'll make an interesting video to show worst case anyway. And then ultimately she decided we're not, don't want to put money into a rented house. I'm just going to get a Subaru Outback, and moved on.
Yeah. So let's talk about another car.
Yeah,
That shares its platform with an internal combustion version, the Genesis GV70. So this is a premium mid-sized SUV that's being built in Alabama. It's not being built on the eGMP platform like a lot of the new Hyundai Motor Group brands, but it does share that powertrain. So it has the 800-volt, 77 kilowatt-hour battery, charges like the Kia EV6, Ioniq 5 or 6 is great. Starts at 66,450, which I kind of think is pretty good. So Kyle, you've driven this as well, I guess. So just top line impression.
Really nice car, surprisingly quick, surprisingly well built, surprisingly luxurious for the price, surprisingly small battery, which means low range, but amazing charging curves. Same battery out of Ioniq 5, EV6, etc. 240 kilowatts deep into the pack, and that makes up for a lot of the small battery stuff. You really get a lot of great driver assistance, good sound system, stealth styling. No one knows it's electric, and it's a good looking car. I mean, overall, we were really impressed with this one, especially after like it just showed up at the office and we're like, they made this thing electric. Like we didn't even realize. It's like, here we go. And it was great. And they did a nice job on this one.
So it's got 235 miles of range, which seems kind of low, but I don't know how did it seem to perform better than that or
no, that feels about right. 200 miles. It felt e-tron levels, felt like our e-tron, but charges way faster than our e-tron.
And what about the interior material? I know this sounds a bit, but for this price, at least in the pictures, the materials looks really good. Like for 66, that's like in Cadillac Lyric kind of territory.
It's visually nice, but all Genesis interior materials use this like waxy leather or waxy materials and cheaper buttons and stuff, where it is not a BMW leather, one of their nicer ones, or a Mercedes nice top leather. It's definitely a step down. It's how someone would imagine it's a luxury car if they've never been in a luxury car before. And for most people, that's more than enough.
That's fair. Okay, let's keep moving along then. Let's talk about another SUV in similar. Oh, and Tom and Martin, feel free to jump in anytime if you have thoughts on this, because I know Kyle's driven a lot of these things and a lot of us haven't, but we still have thoughts and want to hear them. Another SUV in similar mid-size vein that's also built in Alabama is the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. It's available in 4 trims if you include the AMG version, which just came out more recently. Because it has the rear-wheel drive EQE 350 Plus, a couple all-wheel drive trims. It starts at $77,900 for the 350 Plus. It goes all the way up to $109,300 for the AMG. So the EPA range isn't exactly superb here either, with the rear-wheel drive trim getting 279 miles of range. But is this another case of the car outperforming its official range, though? Because I think Out of Spec Jordan took the 500 4MATIC version of this. That's the all-wheel drive version on a 70-mile-an-hour range trip and got 304 miles.
We've range tested a few different versions of EQE SUV. I think maybe 3 different ones. And it's one of those cars that it didn't leave like a lasting impression to me. It was like I was like, yeah, cool. So, someone who had a Mercedes GLE before and is getting this, they're going to love it. It's a very low pack voltage. It's like 320 volt nominal or something, because they removed some modules out of the EQS battery and it's like super low. So it needs 500 amps to only charge at about 150 kilowatts. So you do have to use 350 kilowatt stations to get 150 kilowatts. So that's like a nick against it. But they have unbelievable thermal management. You can rip on this thing all you want, won't overheat. And my colleague Ryan, who like randomly, we did an end of year Out of Spec podcast that hasn't gone up yet. He said that this was his favorite car he's ever driven. Really? And I was like, what? I thought it was great. Like it was an SUV, it was fast. You could like drift it around. Like it was okay, whatever. It's not like fast in a straight line, but I thought, nice. And then it went, and I didn't think about it after it got picked up. And Ryan was like, that EQE AMG SUV was the coolest car I've ever driven. And I want one. If you could have one car for the rest of your life, that's the one he would want. I don't fully understand it, but he loved it.
So I kind of understand it a little bit. I'm not going to say it's my favorite EV, but I just have a sweet spot for that vehicle. And I don't know if I ever mentioned this on the podcast. I almost bought one when I had my Rivian R1S. I guess my reservation came up. and they said, okay, you're ready to, you can configure it, or no, you can take delivery in a month or so. I had that second where I'm like, okay, before I get this, is there anything else that I want to get? I can cancel my reservation. It's refundable. Is there something else I would like? And I remember driving the EQE SUV, and I'm like, that was really good. Let me go check one out again. So I went and checked it out again, and I'm like, I might get this. I might not get the R1S and get this. And then honestly, what pushed me back into the R1S was I had ordered it back before the federal tax credit change. So I had the documentation that my order was in place. So I still qualified for the $7,500 federal tax credit on it, and I wouldn't on the EQE. And I'm like, they're similarly priced, but there's that $7,500 that's dangling in front of me. Do I like the EQE SUV, $7,500 more than the R1S? And I said, no, I don't. It's kind of a push for me at this moment. And I already owned a Rivian, so I'm like, do I need another Rivian? And I like trying different vehicles, but as you know, I ended up with the R1S. But there was a few days where I couldn't make up my mind, and so I get why Ryan feels that way. I love it. I think it's a great vehicle. It's the right size. I liked how it drove. I think it's a good. That would be my electric Mercedes. If you said take one electric Mercedes now, that's probably what I would take.
I should also add that Mercedes nails their software. No one realizes it. Actually, like, I have no issues with the look of the software. Everyone thinks it looks like Windows 2000 or whatever, but the integration for the EV driver is so good. They have unbelievably accurate route planning, plug and charge, and preconditioning, and it will tell you at any given time how fast you can charge, so people can learn, my battery's cold, it's only going to get 80 kilowatts, and then as they drive in precondition, boom, now I can get 200 kilowatts. And really, really cool. And actually, I think it's the perfect car for my mom. And once they put NACS on this thing, that's what I'm going to recommend that she gets. An EQE 350, whatever the big battery, small motors, luxury one. And, she's always driven Mercedes. She loves Mercedes. I think the EQE SUV looks better than any other Mercedes EQ model. And it is and should be the default choice. And it's built here in America. It's pretty cool.
Sorry, I'm just typing the little notes to Martin here in the background. There we go.
Good.
You can tell me, unless it's the thing that we don't talk about. But otherwise, you can tell me.
I don't know what that is. But hey, so let's talk about the Chevrolet Blazer EV. And oh boy, so first deliveries have begun on the Blazer EV. I think they actually started coming out a while ago, but they've been like trickling out. So I just found one at my dealership last week, but now, unfortunately, you cannot buy one because there is a stop sale. GM's put a stop sale on them after some very public fails in public. So it's stranded.
Did you say public fails in public?
Public. I did.
I like it. That's good.
I did, and I didn't even think about it.
That's great.
That's the best kind of public fails.
Jeez.
When they're out there in the public.
Like that fail just there, right?
That's funny. That's great.
So it stranded Kevin Williams, as he's a Inside EVs reporter. He got stranded in a Blazer EV, left him at a charger, basically bricked on him. And then Edmunds had reported they had 23 different issues with his long-term vehicle loaner. After 2 months, they had like 23 different issues. So that all went public, and around the same time, and GM was like, stop sale. Let's get this software sorted out. So when these issues are sorted and sales restart, basically, I think we're looking at the Chevy version, basically, of the Cadillac Lyriq. It starts at $44,995 for the 1LT base trim, which is a front-wheel drive and a smaller battery and 247 miles of range. So I don't know. The 1LT doesn't really sound super attractive to me, but it's not for sale yet anyway. And same with the the SS Performance trim. That is a top spec and pretty attractive, actually. It's a lot more expensive at $66,000, you might as well say. But it has like the 0 to 60 in 4 seconds and Still has 290 miles of range on 22-inch wheels, which is kind of amazing. Like range kind of numbers for like big wheels for that. I think it's got like a 99 kilowatt hour battery, I believe. I don't have that written down here, but just off the top of my head, I believe that's what the number was. Yeah, I don't know. Chevy Blazer, Martin. You don't really get these over there in England, but I don't know. What do you, when you look at it, what do you think?
I mean, look, this looks great. I can't wait for them to get the Ultium cars out. It's no secret that when you guys have tested any of the Ultium stuff, really, it's not covered itself in glory, just in terms of being predictable and knowing that at a certain state of charge, at a certain temperature, when you plug in, you can reasonably expect a certain something from your car. And so it's definitely a work in progress. And I think these cars do look great. I can't wait for more of them to be on the roads. I'm all for giving teething problems, and sure, if a car reviewer is going to get one and it bricks itself, then like that's the dream headline for many car reviewers. I don't know the chap who it failed on, but for many they'll be like, well, I was going to write a certain story and now I got another one. So maybe not the dream review. I'm not saying that came out worse than it was, but like, oh, now I've got an angle because the car is completely dead and they've got to come put it on the back of a flatbed. So that becomes a whole new thing, right? So I feel it's unfortunate. And I would add as well, here is the danger of talking a big game unless you can deliver. Because, boy, oh boy, GM have talked a big game with EVs for a long time. Some of it's not their fault. The whole Biden stuff with Mary, you electrified the car industry, or whatever that quote was, which gets thrown up a lot. But so that's not all their fault. But I'd say 99% of it, they've promised us, development of great products, and these might be great products, but there is sometimes something to be said for more of a quiet launch or a soft launch. Difficult when you're keeping shareholders happy, enormously difficult for these established car companies that are navigating their way over to EV. They've all talked a big game, and most of them have delivered, and there are some great products out there. Unfortunate when you have such a public fail as this. I really want them to get it sorted out as soon as possible, because these cars need just to be built and in people's hands and driveways, because otherwise I think they look great. Now, we don't get them over here. We might be getting some more GM stuff over here in Europe, but for now, no. So man, it's difficult, isn't it, when you have such public fails like this?
Yeah, it was nice to see it in person though. After all this time of hearing about it and waiting for it to come, it's like this is one of the higher volume vehicles, or should be a higher volume vehicle for GM. But I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. I don't know, Tom. You have any Blazer EV thoughts?
Well, I'm going to pull up a comment that Brad made that GM will hash out the issues and move on. Growing pains. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case, Brad. But how long is it going to take? This isn't just happening. Ever since Ultium vehicles started coming off, Hummer EV, even Lyric, there's been issues with these vehicles, and GM's been talking about Ultium for so long, how it's going to be their own dedicated platform, and how they were leapfrogging even Ford, because Ford was converting vehicles. We have this dedicated platform. I'm sure it's going to, but this isn't a month or two now. This is a year of production vehicles having problems, and it's crazy that they haven't been able to sort this out yet. GM's got to get these vehicles delivered in volume, which they still haven't been able to ramp up any kind of production volume on Ultium vehicles. They have a lot of reservations, and they can't ramp up production. And now this disaster with the Blazer, where they're giving vehicles to journalists and they're dying on them. That's nuts that these vehicles went out.
To be fair, there is some glitch with GM vehicles and ABB EA hardware that is causing them to fault, which I think is, EA isn't GM's technical partner when it comes to providing charging, but I still think it's up to the GM team to make sure the vehicles are, I'm trying to think like almost homologated, but that's not the right word, but fit for our market conditions, and including charging infrastructure.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle, you've been to, let's say, Electrified America's, what do they call it? Their excellence lab or something. Yeah. But it's called like the something excellence. Okay. Yes. And these companies, the companies send Electrified America, EVgo, all the infrastructure companies, their vehicles sometimes a year before customers are going to see those vehicles. I've been there where they've had to put canvases over the vehicles because they're like, that car's not coming out for a year. You can't see it. And so this should all be tested. Even GM, I'm sure GM has ABB chargers in their facilities too, to make sure that there's no issues, because, it's, the Center of Excellence, Misco Election's been there also. It's inexcusable to me at this point in the game. I know there was a lot of charging problems 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago when EVs were really new. There was all kind of compatibility problems. But from where we are now, and for how long GM's been working on Ultium, I can't say that I'm going to give them a pass on that. I really can't. If they're giving these vehicles out to journalists and they're showing up in showrooms, that you can't plug in any readily available charging equipment and have it mess up the vehicle.
Right. Interoperability is something that, automakers have a responsibility to work out with the infrastructure out there, or create your own infrastructure. And the automakers decided they didn't want to do that, right? Left it to Tesla to do their own thing, and then played around, threw money at Electrify America and EVgo and say, build us this thing. And it just is not working out really well.
I have a Blazer scheduled for the 18th of January.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, if there's a stop sale, you think they're going to let us borrow it? Especially knowing what we're going to do with it?
I don't know.
That's not happening. I get it on the 18th.
Well, first of all, they don't, like, GM invited us to a bunch of stuff on like Hummer and Silverado, and we had some of the top performing videos on those cars, and then has gone silent for any new vehicle launch, because I think they know what we want to test. We want to test all the stuff that doesn't work.
Well, hopefully it will work, but I mean, if they have stuff that doesn't work, then
I'm going to, of course, plug it into an ABB charger. I'm going to find one. I'm going to go see if it bricks.
There's your warning. You got your GM engineers.
Yeah.
I think,
and if there was any chance of Kyle getting a vehicle, now it's done.
I mean, if they don't give him,
I'll borrow one from our dealer.
He can still borrow one. He can still have a viewer could loan him one. There's all kinds of ways.
Sure, knowing that they're going to brick his car. Yeah, come over and take my car, Kyle. Go brick it on me.
If a viewer is listening, just tune out for a moment. And
I have some sympathy here for the people whose job it is to make sure this is right, because of how much is on the line and how much is at stake. And these car companies that employ tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and livelihoods are at risk. And you've got the CEO next to presidents talking about how many hundreds of billions are being invested. And it's really hard to be the whistleblower sometimes, to put your just to put your hand in the air or your head above the parapet and say, we can't sell this car. It's not ready. I'll tell you a famous story from over here. Back in the, a lot of our local radios all consolidated. It has over there for you as well. But back in the day when local radio stations were local radio stations, I'm going back when 20 years ago when I worked in it. And they had one of these crazy stunts on the breakfast show, like, who can sit on a block of ice for longest. And they ordered dry ice, not ice. Now, that causes serious burns. And nobody along the chain of command, because I gather people were just too scared to put their hand in the air, and at no point did anybody have the ability, the guts, the balls, the oh my goodness, I need to pay my mortgage at the end of the month, will I be fired, to go, someone's made a mistake. And of course they did it, and people got hurt, and it went to court and all that kind of stuff. And I always think of that example because at any point in the chain, somebody could go, we can't sell the Blazer. We can't sell the car like this because the software, it's going to take 6 months to fix. I am not going to be the person, if I'm paying my bills at the end of the month, to say that. I'll maybe raise an issue here or do it in a certain way. I have some sympathy when products aren't ready, whatever that product, let alone an EV. This product doesn't sound like it's ready, and it's a disaster for share prices, for jobs, for board members, ultimately for CEOs, when you've got to go, we need 1 more year. Like, that's a disaster. It's what should happen. Because you shouldn't sell something to a customer and they're hard-earned and it's not ready. But I have sympathy for these big companies because, if you're the one person in a meeting room, there's 20 people in a boardroom, and you're going, we can't sell this car. Like, that doesn't go down too well. And you've got to be a big old set of kahunas to do that. Now, I think I'd like to say that I would do that. But, man, big call.
Yeah. Someone's asked, Brad Cook asked, why isn't the Lyric doing this? I don't know. The Lyric has had some issues, but
It has had issues.
But I have actually also seen a lot of very happy Lyric owners on Threads. Actually, right now I've come across those people are really happy with, really enjoy their Lyrics, and it's kind of nice to see. That I like seeing when people buy an EV and they really enjoy the experience of it. So it's been kind of nice to see that. But the Lyric still has a like the Blazer has a big charging port door. When it opens, it still like it did on the first drive program. It shudders as it opens up. Now I tested the Blazer one and it doesn't do that, but it's really slow.
The Blazer has the slowest. We did it a whole LA Auto Show tour, and we sat there for 5 minutes just. And then one time, after like doing this 100 times, it went wham, closed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was like, you're done. Get away from us.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Just give me a
figure out.
I have a question about why isn't the Lyric doing this? I've rented Lyrics and done some videos on them, and I experienced software issues in the vehicle. The one time I was driving it, it just kept giving me warnings that the front camera's blocked, so the automatic cruise control is canceled. There was no blocking. I pulled over, cleaned it off. I mean, it was a beautiful, clear day. And I had various glitches come up on the screen, and I mentioned it to the guy I rented it on Turo, and I mentioned it to the person that rented him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I got to bring it in. There's a whole bunch of glitches on the vehicle." And then as far as charging, I put out my videos on that to see the charging curve where it's kind of all over the place. It'll charge like hell for 3 or 4 minutes, and then it drops down to like 4 kilowatts for a couple of minutes, then it jumps back up. And at my experience with Lyrics, and I've rented them twice to do range tests and charging, is I've always had some sort of an issue with the vehicle. So, I don't follow the Lyric message boards and so forth, but the one that I had definitely had issues.
Matthew says Lyric came up before Ultify was ready, so I'm not sure they have Ultify yet, like the Blazer. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but we should move on to another vehicle because big story this year, actually, that we don't really talk a whole lot about, but it's kind of a big story, I think. Fisker relaunched itself after, it's a whole long story. So Henrik Fisker has been a auto designer for a long time. He's got some pretty, big cars in his past, in his portfolio, and he launched a car company back in the late 2000s, and he sold the Fisker Karma, which was a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and yeah, that all kind of fell apart in many different ways. And so he was out of that company for a while, and he restarted another company to do a similar thing, a very, very design strong electric vehicle company. And and he's used different approaches. He's gone with Magna as a contract builder, and I think they had a lot to do with the development as well of the vehicles. And they've actually produced and sold and delivered their first vehicle this year. First vehicles, they have a bunch of them out, of course. So there's knocks back and forth. It's a new company, it's a startup, so they're not going to get everything necessarily right. But I just want to take a moment just to say that's like quite an accomplishment, and congratulations, basically.
So I just did a podcast with Francie with a new friend, a longtime viewer who owns a Fisker Ocean and was a longtime Tesla guy and has a Rivian and other EVs and is very familiar. And I thought it was interesting. He's also a Fisker investor, but was very candid about his experience with the Ocean. And what he experienced was essentially the quality of the product. Like when I drove it a year ago, the door shuts, the seat materials, the cabin, the styling is great. The hard stuff on the vehicle, the physical hardware is awesome, but the software is kind of really not great at all. It had interoperability issues with charging on major charging providers, hardware, Delta units, which is mostly EVgo as an example. They had major software glitches. I've heard of I think in my dad's video, my dad went to make a video on the Out of Spec Dave channel, and the screen rotated, which is this really cool center rotation thing, but then it got stuck in the other orientation. And it just seems like major software here. And what's interesting is I have to go back and check, but when I drove the Fisker Ocean for the first time a year ago at CES, so very early this year, it was a pre-production car. I sat down with, I thought, a very high up software guy, maybe even the head of software. And he didn't really know like half the things that I wanted to know about the user experience and route planning and plug and charge and so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean, I think we all know Magna builds some pretty hardcore stuff. Yeah, they've sponsored us, but like that, regardless, they build G-Wagons. So there's no concerns around the like.
They haven't sponsored us, but hey, if they want to, we're
yeah.
here.
Well, that would actually not be a bad idea. Maybe I'll pitch them on that. But ultimately, I think most of the Magna stuff is good here. I still think there was some production constraints. Just hearing rumors, like a few of them were coming down the line early on. I'm like, why aren't you building more? I don't know if that was a Magna or a supplier thing, or if it was Fisker saying, I don't know what's going on. We got to like sort the software. But ultimately, yeah, it seems like a software needs to wait a bit. And what's crazy is journalists got them originally, and then they were like, I think like Matt Farah had one, returned it after a day, and Edmunds had issues with theirs, and so on and so forth. And we asked for one, of course. They're like, you're on the list, you'll get it. Like what? I'm like, I'm gonna come to California. I just need the car for a couple of days. I want to do all the stuff. And they're like, you're on the list. And the list sounds like once the next major software update comes and it's proven that it's reliable, I'm thinking then we'll start to see them out for reviews.
Right.
I'm seeing them around here. I saw 2 of them on the roads recently. So
Really?
they must be delivering them. So they're definitely a few in New Jersey.
Yeah, so it's kind of the specs on this are kind of interesting. So it has like a 106 kilowatt hour battery, which is, that's a chunky battery. 360 miles of EPA range on 20-inch tires, and in the extreme trim, that's the top trim, I believe. And the 0 to 60 for that trim is also impressive at 3.7 seconds. But you can spec it down to, it starts at $37,499 for the front-wheel drive base sport trim. That comes with a smaller battery, 250 miles of range. So if you want all-wheel drive, you need to start with the Ultra trim. It starts at basically $50,000. And Fisker sells direct to customers. I need to check if they lease, but so there might be a wait time, but you can also go under and buy inventory. They have inventory cars that you can buy. They had at least like a dozen on them. They didn't have any. They do it by location, so I put in my location, and they didn't have any in their inventory for Florida, but I put in 90210 because that's the only California postal code that I know.
And, those are what kind of TV shows you were watching back in the day.
I mean, I didn't even watch that show, but it was like 90210 was everywhere, right? So yeah, but they had like a dozen in the, I guess that's a Hollywood area.
Do you want to get a plastic surgery reconstruction of your face?
Man, I don't know if I can do anything with this at this point. Yeah. But anyway, so Fisker is out there. Interesting. You mentioned the production. So the production just sped up, and more recently it slowed down again. I'm not really sure. There's like inconsistency. Maybe it's a matter of getting their software worked out. I'm not sure.
It's hard to say. I don't know exactly how that Magna relationship works with Fisker. I don't know if Fisker pays Magna to like build in batches, or if Magna builds them and then has to sell them to Fisker. I imagine. I know it's on a shared line with some other vehicles that Magna's producing, so they can slide in Oceans when needed.
Cool.
Nice.
And I was just in that factory last year, actually. It was really cool. It was before they were building the Ocean, but I did see them driving around on test tracks and stuff, and I couldn't really talk about it, but I thought it was pretty neat. Now I can.
They make the Jaguar I-Pace there too, right?
Yeah.
They do. I did a whole video on how they transport the I-Pace body in whites from their factory to the other side of the facility on an electric truck. It was so cool, but so capacity constraining for production. They like cannot build that many of them. And honestly, I don't even think Jaguar knows they make the I-Pace anymore, so it's probably not a bad idea to slow that down.
In my video, I did find one on the lot at the Jaguar dealer, or a couple actually.
Great vehicle.
I forgot how much I like it. They look great.
The gray one you found in Tallahassee looked awesome with that light interior, and it was debadged. It didn't really like say I-Pace anywhere.
It didn't say I-Pace anywhere. It was like, is this? I had to look and make sure there's no exhaust pipe underneath. Just because it's been so long since I sat in Chicago 2018 auto show or something like that. It's been a while, so I wasn't even sure if that was that. Yeah, and I looked for the badge, no badge. Anyway,
and they're built so well. They're such a great. Oh, the iPace is great. I hate to think if they go wrong, what it costs to fix out of warranty.
That's the thing. There's going to be no support for that vehicle out of warranty.
Kind of scary.
Yeah.
The first is Fisker Ocean Sport was delivered just before Christmas in the UK, a right-hand drive, which I've never fully understood Fisker's strategy of everything everywhere. You all get them, and I just do California and then get a bit bigger and just do the US and North America. However, a friend of mine, close friend actually, had an order in for a very long time since they launched, actually, and he ended up spending some holiday time just before Christmas in the US, and funnily enough, in his hotel, I think he was staying next door to the guy who runs the Fiskerati website. I think that's where he was. Because he saw his vehicle in the car park, and we got chatting. He was like, "Oh my goodness! I read your website. Can we have a go?" And he said, "Yeah, come out." And he took him out in it, and came back and cancelled his reservation. He was deeply unimpressed. The good thing is, the money arrived back instantly. Well, I think within a week or so into his account, there was no messing around, or he here's your deposit back, no problem. So that's a good sign that they're they're acting ethically and things like that when people cancel and they get their money back straight away. But he wasn't impressed with the overall finish of how the vehicle was integrated. He was like, well, maybe one day, not yet.
Interesting. Well, we should move on to more cars. We just got more, and we're running a little bit low on time. So another nice mid-size sedan from Hyundai this year, the Ioniq 6 on the GMP platform, like the Ioniq 5. Base MSRP 42,450. That gets you the rear-wheel drive with an awesome 360 miles of range. Man, if you're looking for range, I mean, that seems like the spec. That's a lot of range. The top limited spec has that's the top. Yeah, limited is 50,150. So only $8,000 spread there, a little less. And that's available. Actually, that's available also in rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. The rear-wheel drive gets 305 miles, and that's in the top spec. But it goes down in all-wheel drive 270 miles. I got to drive this car last summer, actually, in Savannah, Georgia, and I really liked it. I didn't get a good sense of the performance abilities. I had people in my car, so I took it kind of easy. But I did think it had a nice supple ride. It's very mature car, I thought. And just lovely to spend time in. But Kyle, you got to push it a little bit harder. What do you think of your top line thoughts?
Yeah, fantastic car. Truly fantastic car. The styling is weird on first glance, and at second glance, also weird. So it's a little bit funky. I love the front end, and I particularly love this specification that I got to drive, which is that green with the white-ish interior. Really cool combination on that one. Whenever I see an Ioniq 6 on the road, which I have to admit is not that often here in Colorado, a lot more often in California, I go, you know what? That's interesting and different, and I'm glad they did that. And that's a different thing that I'm used to seeing on the road. I would personally get an Ioniq 5, give up some of the range and get the boxy shape. And, I love the Ioniq 5. It's awesome. But still, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis are struggling massively in their software integration of everything. I just reviewed the Kia EV9. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But even on their latest and greatest tech, it's just these segmented screens with weird looking things and 9 menus deep. Like, I just love the Rivian approach, or the Tesla approach, or the Neo approach, where you just get everything on a screen. And I never hear people, some people complain, okay, lack of buttons. You can still have buttons and have a nice screen. And so I feel like that's what all of these vehicles need, is just that last, total, software integration. But the Ioniq 6 is the unique choice. It charges really well. It doesn't have quite the peak speed of a Model 3, but it holds it longer. So it's technically a faster road tripper. And I really want to get one of the long range ones in our spec. The problem with the Ioniq 6 is the reason you go for the 6 over the 5 is for the range, I think, and your efficiency of road tripping. However, you can only get the aero wheels on the base trim. Even mid trim and top trim come with the big wheels that were pictured in my thumbnail there. And Yeah, I feel like if you get a top spec one and then buy a set of the Aero wheels off eBay, you're in for a freaking awesome road tripper.
Yeah, maybe that's the car I should go on a long road trip with.
No, you need a car to stop at chargers as often as possible so you can experience
Bolt.
DCS. Yeah, e-tron, Bolt. Well,
Actually,
Bolt doesn't really push the chargers. You need something that can do at least 150 kilowatts.
You know, I'm not sure why, but for some reason I'm really hyped on Volkswagen ID4s right now. Like the 2024,
Yeah.
I'm so excited for it.
You keep bringing it up.
Oh man, I don't know what it is, but I need to try it and just maybe get it out of my system. Maybe it's not.
It's not what you're thinking. It's nice.
Yeah.
I've driven it. It's not. It's a nice update, but it's not worth any mental mind share.
Right. I mean,
the new software is a huge improvement.
Right.
Yes.
I just enjoyed the driving feel of the original one. That the rear-wheel drive. Yeah, I drove the rear-wheel drive, and I just enjoyed the feel of it, the ride, just everything about it. I just kind of liked it, and I liked the kind of cheerful interior. Software issues, of course. I remember trying to figure out how to turn off the radio. It was
you just swipe to the left.
Yeah, I mean, but that should be a little more obvious. I mean, but
once
it
you own the car, everyone
knows
how to turn down the once you spend.
Although I've heard people sometimes they're like in the dark, they're like having issues.
Journalists in the dark.
Okay.
That don't live with the car.
Okay. That's probably fair.
I've never owned one, but I've put, I don't know, 50,000 miles on ID4 or something stupidly crazy like that. And I can just boop. I know all the shortcuts and it's no problem. But the new software, like Tom mentioned, whatever it is, operating system 4 or 5, whatever they're up to. Yeah. Freaking epic. So good. It's as fast as you can hit a button. Bam, that screen is loaded up. It's still not as intuitive as Rivian. I think Rivian almost sets the benchmark for software. They really nail it. But Tesla as well is amazing. But they really, did some homework and dialed that thing in.
Cool. Kia EV9 is a large 3-row SUV that a lot of people have been waiting for. Also built on the eGMP platform, has a rear-wheel drive entry trim called Light, which can be had with a smaller 76.1 kilowatt-hour battery, as well as the regular 99.8 kilowatt-hour pack that's in all the other trims. So this gives it a better range than the other versions with 304 EPA miles in the Light trim, right? Rear-wheel drive, big battery. 304 is your top mile range. It starts at 56,395, but with the bigger pack starting at just over 4,000 more at 60,695. That seems like the more likely starting place for most buyers. The GT line is the top trim right now, and it starts at 75,395. So aside from the price, this thing kills the Kia Telluride, which it gets. Is it Telluride it gets compared with?
Well, Telluride is their combustion equivalent,
right? But it gets the EV9 it gets compared to it's a similar size, right? 3-row.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. And I was watching the Edmunds review of it that Clint Simone did, and he said it killed the Telluride every possible way except for price, because that thing starts at $35,990, which explains why they sold like 100,000 of them last year.
But most of them were top spec ones, and I actually in my review borrowed this from a dealer, and they gave me the lease numbers on it. And in Colorado, $3,000 down, $560 a month on a lease. Really not bad.
Okay. That's for the EV9 you're saying.
Yeah. And typically I don't recommend leasing cars, but you can actually roll in all the credits and then buy it out after the lease, and you're still ahead.
Okay. So you have a review video of the Kia EV9 that just came out this morning. Like I wasn't there last night. I was thinking you had the EV9. I was going through all looking around. Where did I see an EV9 on with Kyle somewhere? But here it is now on the internet. So we're looking at the frunk right now. It's a decent, not a bad frunk.
And the rear wheel drive gets a double the size frunk.
Oh, okay. So this is all-wheel drive.
Yep, this was a top spec every option.
GT
it went
line.
up just before the podcast went up. This is GT line with the relax pack and everything, air suspension in the rear. This was an $80,000 build, 78.9 or something like that.
Wow, so that's getting up there in price. That's
but is it though? Because when you compare it to 3-row R1S and when you compare it to Model X, it's right in that wheelhouse, and you get so much more in many ways with this one.
Okay. And better materials or equal kind of close materials. I'm also thinking about the Lucid Gravity coming. That's going to be Is that starting to 80 or is that 100?
Starts at 80, 79.
Starts at 80. So basically what this car is the maxed one starts where most of its competition starts and then goes up from there. So you can get heated and cooled rear seats that power recline with this massive double sunroof thing with great driver assistance, Meridian sound system, all in that top spec one. And I think we're going to see a lot of existing Chevy Tahoe drivers, or even minivan drivers where, a lot of people drive minivans who have all the money in the world. There isn't like an Uber premium minivan that you can go and buy and spend a lot of money on other than really a Model X. And I think we're going to see a lot of that high-end buyer base actually come here and get fully spec'd EV9s and be thrilled with them. I was very pleased overall with the car. There was some material stuff, yes. Ultimately, they still have like little plasticky buttons here and there, and some stuff feels a little chintzy, and that is on very minimal trim pieces. But to be honest, I think you can also get this from the $60,000 range up. And we took a look, and there are screenshots that will come up here soon of a very lightly optioned wind trim. Still had the glass roof, still had nice material, still had the cool headrests, and you are getting so much vehicle for your money. And it is finally it's larger than R1S. It's way more usable on the inside. It's way better air conditioning in the back, forced from the roof, which is really nice, especially for us. We're always thinking about the dogs. How do we keep them cool in the summertime? And this is the new benchmark in the 3-row SUV category. It is so good. I was so blown away with it. That was just on initial glance. Right after this podcast, as soon as we're done, the Fort Collins Kia dealer was kind enough, because the press cars haven't really arrived unless you're a North American Car of the Year journalist, which is like, whatever. But like, for us lowly people who are just making YouTube content, we can't get access to the cars yet. So the Kia dealer was cool enough. They said, you know what? We have another one. They have a few that are available. They're selling at sticker. And they're like, why don't you just take one? We'll use it as our demo car, but go do a range test, charging test, 10% challenge. And so I'm going to do all that today and put, 500 or 600 miles on their car. That really ultimately benefits the entire country worth of market. This is something that Kia typically would do, but our dealer is just so awesome and cool to work with. So there's the base one.
What's the name of the dealer?
Screen. It's Fort Collins Kia.
Fort Collins Kia, big shout out. Thank you very much. Yes, so this thing looks pretty good. Oh, Brandon was saying the rear reclining captain's chairs look great. I want to go on a road trip in the back seat. Someone was saying they wanted to spec in their mind, they wanted to spec a bench seat in the back, but then they went to check one out in person and they fell in love with the captain's chairs.
Totally. Yeah. The problem with the captain's chairs is I think a lot of people, captain's chairs are probably going to be the most popular. And the third row, I actually fit in the third row. It's tight, but I fit. Unlike Model X or Model Y, this has a usable third row. But I actually prefer the bench seat, because when you fold everything flat, then you get a truly flat floor. Yes. And in our case with the dogs, they're going to be like in and out that middle bit. And, the way we drive, they're flying all over the back anyway, Dumb and Dumber style. So, we got to keep them contained inside the car. I'm just joking. We drive really slow with the dogs. We would never do that to
them. Walter's so huge. I don't know if you could pitch him back and forth, because he fills up the actual whole space back there anyway. But
yeah. But no, it really, as soon as Alyssa and I got in this thing to review it, we drove it. We looked around it, opened everything. We're like, this is just it. This is the car.
Right. To me, it looks like I see this, and as a musician, I'm thinking, oh, this is a road trip, and this is like a touring vehicle. This is like, we want to go to play a gig in Texas. This will fit the upright and a bunch of gear, no problem, with all those seats folded down, and without costing like $100,000, right?
It's amazing the value that you get. Yes, it's a $78,000 Kia, the one that we tested. But when you compare it to what else is on the market, I've never seen cooled second row seats in anything under $170,000. And it reclines, reclines, and they fold flat. Unlike the Model X 6-seat, which my biggest issue is with the Plaid that we have in the driveway now, my dad's car that I've been borrowing, I can't fold the 6-seat down. They look great. They're fun to sit in, but they don't fold. Here, you can fold the captain's chairs. And, it just is such an expansive amount of room. It's really amazing.
Let's take a little side detour for a second. Martin, how's the new car replacement coming?
Done, purchased at auction this week. Got
Ooh.
a bargain. It's
And do we need a drum roll?
No, it's easily the cheapest version of this car on sale in this spec in the UK, because I've been checking all the retail prices. So very happy to do that. I like a little bit of value. I don't mind if things go wrong, because everything can be fixed and it's all part of the story anyway. And I'll tell you, it's not a car that we have discussed on the podcast yet this week. And I won't hold things up now by talking about it, because I haven't gone to get it yet. But it's currently on charge, so I've got to go set the app up. And it's up with a friend of mine who lives near where it was, near the auction house. So I'll tell you more next week, or maybe the week after, because next week is all the cars coming in 2024.
No, let's start the show next week.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that, because
that's your car coming in 2024.
Yeah, this is mine.
True.
Well, I might go get it next Friday, and we can do the handover live on air or something. So I might go up and get it next Friday. It's from near Manchester, which is about 5 hours north of me on the south coast. That's up in the northwest. So
that's a nice drive.
Well, I'll be getting the train up to drive home again, and
nice.
It'll be we have public transport.
Train drives are right.
It's great, isn't it? Looking forward to it. Really happy, delighted to get a bargain. And I'm trying to think of anything else cryptic I can say. And one of the out of spec team owns this car.
That is correct.
That's true. That's true.
There you go. That is true. So there you go.
Oh, big shout out to EVKX, who
Oh,
thanks us for great content this year. We love those Norwegian kroners. I think that's how you say that. It's really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So we should move on real quick. Cybertruck, Tesla Cybertruck, big year for Tesla, because they haven't had a new product in some time, and this is like a big high volume product. Super controversial. Got some great new innovation happening. Tesla pushes innovation, I think, harder than maybe anybody else, really. They're for the better or for worse. Sometimes it's for the worse. Sometimes they tell you that your car will drive itself by the end of the year, and then it doesn't. But sometimes they, put in 48 volt, systems, and then reach, just completely change the networking architecture from a CAN bus to a whole different system, drive-by-wire. This, without an actual physical. This is not. So the Cybertruck has drive-by-wire steering. It's not the first vehicle to have it, but the only one that had it before also had a physical steering column in case things went wrong. It would still, work. And then they stopped making that, I believe, too, as well. So Cybertruck is the only steer-by-wire thing available now, I think, except for maybe Canoe, which is not going out to. It's not even really been delivered yet. I think on the verge of shipping some to some government contracts or something. But anyway, Cybertruck. Kyle, you were there at the first handover event and got to see the factory, which we're looking at now on our screen. There's Colton with you, being very excited, looking at the production line. Man, that's what a great experience. I'm kind of jealous, actually.
That was a blast. Really fun. Really cool to actually meet the engineers of the Cybertruck and, go through all of the, cut through the BS of all the speculation. I hate speculation on, future product. And, I hate it on both ends. I hate the Tesla people that are like, this is going to end the game. It's the best thing to ever happen in the world. And, that's just so annoying. And then on the other side, I hate the people that are like, Cybertruck will never work. It's a failure from the gate. And that's also so annoying. How about we just figure out what the heck this damn thing is? And to be honest, I haven't driven it yet, but I am going to Austin, Texas in 2 days, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But ultimately, I am very excited about the Cybertruck. I still think I have to give massive props to Tesla for literally going out on a limb and making something insane. Whether that's insane in a great way or a terrible way is totally up to your perception of it. But I love weird, interesting, quirky cars. And this is peak. It is absolute max weirdness. And, we don't know how it charges. It doesn't look great on first analysis. We don't know. But again, we haven't seen it on a 800 volt charger. We've only seen it charging in split pack on version 2, version 3 superchargers. But still, that's not looking that promising. We have not seen any range or efficiency tests. We have not seen any towing tests. And I'm not saying I'll be able to do any of this in Austin. I just hope at a minimum I can share a walk around full tour. a lot of the early Cybertruck owners are employees, and my understanding is they're running on pre-release software that would alter our testing. And so they won't let us do, a lot of these employees won't let us do range charging, blah, 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 because of pre-release software. I had another guy tell me, yeah, you can come do whatever you want in my truck, but you can't say anything bad about it. And I'm like, what the heck do you care? So, these are the people that we're kind of trying to cut through all this BS so that we can find an owner who's just like, yeah, go take it. Or here's one for sale. So many people have offered up reservations or VINs to us, and I really appreciate everyone reaching out. But until you have one that's either at the dealer that you're going to transfer to us or one that's in your possession that you can sell to us, there's just so many. I just need to go with whatever one comes in first. And to be honest, most of the early reviews have been of the tri-motor version, and they're only delivering the dual motor version. So we don't actually know how that drives or how it performs or anything.
Well, this one might be for sale pretty soon, Kyle.
This was interesting. This happened yesterday where a Corolla lost control and flung into the oncoming lane where the Cybertruck happened to just be driving.
So there's the Corolla on the right-hand side.
It was a front-on slate overlap collision, which cars are kind of built to the handle, and the Corolla handled it quite well. It absorbed all of that right up to the A-pillar, basically. The minor injury.
So it was an old Corolla, right? Like a 15-year-old Corolla or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I thought it was. I thought it was like a 2008 or something like that, or 2009.
Yeah, it looks like an 08, 09 generation.
It's this one. Oops.
There you go.
And then over to Reddit, and I don't know if that's a better picture.
You see the airbags have gone off in the Cybertruck as well. So I did, before we show this, we did check, by the way, a minor injury, but we wouldn't show something that we didn't know. So we checked all the news sources on this that we could see, and it said one minor injury. So felt okay sharing the pictures in case you were worried, by the way.
And it was
what kind of damage was to the Cybertruck? I didn't see that though.
Yeah,
not seen a picture. Not seen a picture of that.
Can't really see.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I saw it, but someone took a picture of the whole side of it. It just looked like someone scraped the side of it.
Okay.
It looked pretty good.
Okay.
I mean, it seems like the car didn't hit it head on. It looks like it hit it in the rear door.
I see. So it hit the front corner of the Corolla, but it didn't hit the front corner of so it wasn't really a head on. It was more of a head to the side.
Yeah, the Cybertruck seemed like they were just cruising. Maybe they avoided a little bit. I don't know.
Right.
But it didn't. It seemed like most of the hit was on the side. Like it ripped all the body cladding off the back. The charge port stayed on, so you can still charge it. That was the biggest question, was like, you're going to put the charge port there and someone's going to crash in. It held on.
And the airbags is deployed. So will this end up at an auction somewhere?
Oh, damn.
Well, so this is a Tesla-owned manufacturer vehicle. My guess is they will keep it in-house for parts or for something. They probably don't want
some analysis, right?
They probably don't want this going to auction, to be honest.
Oh no, if it did, they'd probably try to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I could tell, the plates were Texas manufacturer. So I don't think I don't think this is going to auction.
Okay,
so
but
awful that it happened, and hopefully everyone is okay with that. I mean, it's not a huge amount of damage on the Cybertruck.
But the bottom panel is pushed in. That's definitely crumpled in.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
yeah. That's where it looks like it took a big something.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't. Since it's not an owner's car, we probably won't find out if that's fixable anyway. Because repairability is something that people talk about when they talk about Cybertruck. Well, people talk about everything when they talk about Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Pedestrian safety and all. It just has a lot of sharp edges. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, and the other thing we should mention is repairability on a brand new car is always annoying.
Sure.
There will have to be a supply chain built up and a knowledge base and a training base around this where it might be repairable at some point in the future. But I think we can know without a surprise that if you're going to crash one of these, it's going to be a pain in the ass early on, and you're probably not going to find parts readily available. So that's not unbelievably unknown.
Smidge 204 here with the jokes. Are you sure that's not a factory panel gap?
Well, the production ones looked pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's just like traditionally,
yeah, of course,
panel gaps, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, nice one. Anyway, we should real quickly. Lexus RZ, first
and
one,
next car
first all electric Lexus arrived this year. Kyle, you titled your review, "I drive the electric Lexus RZ 450e for the first time. Is this a joke?" Like, kind of sums up your feelings about it. So, decent looking car, decent materials inside, I guess, but it's let down by its charging experience and range. Is that basically the high level view of this vehicle?
Yeah, charging, range, integration, overall performance, value for money, software.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Not hitting it out of the park on this first go around. You expect more from Lexus, basically, too.
You
right?
would think the leader of electrified vehicles, hybrids, plug-in hybrids, would know how to build a quality battery electric vehicle. They have enough money to do research to say what's important to have an electric car. I even put up a video making it easy for everyone to learn. What are the 3 things you need in every long-range electric car? It's route planning, it's plug-in charge, and battery preconditioning. It doesn't have any of that. So this thing, and it's more money than other comparable EVs. And there will be plenty of Lexus owners who buy this car and charge it home and drive to their retirement golf center community and back to their house, and they'll be pleased with it because that's just, it does the Lexus thing. But if you're going to use it as a car and compare it, in the automotive landscape, this would be such a dumb purchasing decision.
Right. So it doesn't get your seal of approval. That's what you're saying, really. I think I'm reading between the lines here.
Okay. Yeah.
Will a Lexus buyer, like Subaru buyers, they'll buy the brand and they'll overlook the negatives. Will Lexus buyers buy this and be like, well, I know it's not great, but I'm a Lexus buyer.
Yes.
Will they buy it and like it?
That is the epitome of the Lexus buyer.
Okay.
They do zero research. They go because they have a truly fantastic sales and service experience. When you go to a Lexus dealer, you have your sales guy that you've bought your last 15 Lexus RXs from, and them, and they know that you're going to come in, you're going to pay sticker, they give you a coffee, he's got the gold chain on. Have a nice day, Karen. Enjoy your Lexus RZ. You've gone electric, and they're going to charge it home, and they're going to be very happy with it. And that's just how it'll be. Yeah, the Lexus RZ is the official car of the Villages. That is what this car is.
I was gonna say I'll have to take a trip down there and check it out for myself, but I actually don't really want to. It kind of creeps me out down there. But
well, the Villages, yeah. But actually, like the if you sit in the Lexus RZ at like a show, it's actually kind of cool. It's like got coolish materials and it's not all bad.
Yeah.
It's just in the context of the car, it's not good.
Right. So let's mention another car in that same sort of vein. You did a brand new car review this year, and you called it "I drive the VinFast VF8 for the first time, and I really wish I didn't." So that's another new car from a new manufacturer. Almost like you could almost say that they're a startup, basically. I mean, they've been around for a few years making cars. Combustion cars in Vietnam on platform BMW platforms or something, but this is like their first, getting it all together, kind of being an electric automaker. This is their first product, and it's a bit of a miss, we got to say. The VinFast VF8, designed by Pininfarina, so some people, will enjoy the styling, I guess, and I think it's better than what. So I went to Vietnam. VinFast, paid for us to go over and spent a wonderful week there. It's an incredible country, great people at the VinFast as well. And, the car was not at all ready to even be prototype tested, really. And it doesn't seem like it's advanced, enough to really be on the retail market now. But I don't know. We've heard, you talk about it. Tom, do you have any thoughts on the VF8 real quick?
So I haven't spent any time with any VinFast vehicle. So it's hard for me to really comment on it. I know pretty much most of the people that I've spoken with that have spent extended time with them have said that, they're not ready for prime time yet. That said, somebody just reached out to me yesterday and asked me if I wanted to drive the VF9. Evidently, there's one here in New Jersey that I can have access to if I want to. So I might take them up on that sometime after the new year. But I don't have a lot to say about it because I haven't spent time with it. I didn't go on the press drive that so many people did over in Vietnam. I've never asked to borrow one here. I haven't had a lot of interest in it, to be honest with you, until I get some feedback that it looks like these vehicles are really rock solid and ready to be driven. Because everybody I've spoken with that have spent time in them have said, like, it's interesting, but it seems like they're giving us cars to drive before they're really fully baked. And I don't really want to waste time with something that I'm going to have the same opinion on. So
sure.
But maybe I'll check out the 9.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear about the VF9 to see if it's much of a progression. Maybe you should see if you can get an 8 just so you can compare it with the 9, see what kind of advancement,
if any like. I don't think they have like press loaner cars here or anything like that. So I don't know where I'd get an 8. I've never seen one on the road yet. Never, not one.
So, I'm in Florida. We don't see them here. Yeah.
My friend works at a dealership in Raleigh, North Carolina. Well, actually Cary, just south of Raleigh. And they got, I think, 100 VF8s dropped off at their new VinFast dealer. I think owned by Leith. I could be wrong, but one of the big dealer groups down there.
Okay.
And so you can go down there and test drive one, check them out.
It's true. That's true. They have it's their first kind of retail outlet. They say they're going with a hybrid sales model, which I don't know how they're going to make that work, because I don't think that works.
Well, Polestar does that, no?
Polestar has their own stores. They don't sell at dealerships, right?
Yeah, no, that is sold through, technically. Like when I bought my Polestar, I dealt with McDonald Volvo employees that happened to be stationed at the Polestar Center that day. And then, all of my paperwork said McDonald Volvo.
Okay.
They didn't argue with me on the price of anything, but I also was buying a Polestar 1 that I pre-negotiated the deal on and everything. So like, I don't know, but Max bought his Polestar from a Polestar store. He couldn't negotiate, but it was all done through a dealer. And like, dealers have to buy the cars and hold them in inventory, and they discount the ones that are test drive models. Yeah. And it's Leith VinFast in Raleigh. I don't recommend going to buy one, but go check one out.
I'll definitely check it out. Yeah. And
if you do buy one, at least talk to Ben first.
Okay, right. I kind of like to jump into the can of worms about their dealer model, but maybe we can do that on a future episode when the VF9 comes out, which should be not before too long. But anyway, let's talk about something else kind of nicer real quick. Built on the platform architecture of luxury. The Rolls-Royce Spectre is something else you got to drive this year. And this is amazing. I think, I mean, it's $420,000, so it's got to be nice, right?
That's the base price. You'll never find one that cheap. Anyone you'll ever find will have a 5 or 6 or 7 in front of it.
Right. Only 264 miles of range. Can you believe that?
That's probably enough for an entire year of driving.
Now, this thing is pretty amazing, though. It's probably the most powerful Rolls-Royce ever. I'm not sure if I saw that claim. It's got 584 horsepower, 664 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is 4.4 seconds. I'm pretty sure it's the quickest Rolls-Royce ever.
I don't know.
The coefficient of drag is definitely the best, because that's something I took off of their site. It's the most aerodynamic shape Rolls-Royce has ever created.
And it's still got that massive freaking honking grill on the front of this thing.
Right. Well, the little, what do you call the lady on the front?
The Spirit of Ecstasy.
The hood ornament. They restyled that so it would be more aerodynamic. So that's the detail, the amount of detail that Rolls-Royce will get into in a vehicle. Yeah, I'm not sure if we really need to say a whole lot about this, because none of us are ever going to be able to afford it. But it's freaking sweet that Rolls-Royce is doing this. And Kyle, you got to drive it. First time testing, charging, efficiency, comfort. This is basically a BMW platform, though? Or is it not?
Nope. This is a Rolls-Royce platform with the BMW's sort of next generation battery that's only used in the Spectre. So it is really Rolls-Royce stuff. And I think I'm the only person to ever pull into a Electrify America station at 0% in a Spectre. So that was pretty fun. And it was a fun time too.
Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning, wasn't it? Or something, like you were driving it through the night.
Yeah, we had it overnight in the middle of this event. And we're like, we are not sleeping. We are only driving the Spectre for the entire night. And so Francie was there, and Brandon Flash drove over from North Carolina. And we're all just cruising around in the Spectre doing efficiency testing, charge testing. The looks we were getting around in the middle of the night of Greenville, South Carolina, driving the Spectre. It was so funny. People were like, what is up with these people?
My favorite story about that Spectre is one of the Rolls-Royce owner who wanted a DC fast charge at home. So they had to just get all the electrical work done and put a, was it 50 kilowatt charger just because he wanted to. Just, why do you want it? Just because I do, and I can afford it, and I love that. That's Rolls-Royce owners for you.
That's
Why do you want a DC fast charge at home? Because I want to. All right, sir, we'll make it happen.
All right. So that's pretty much everything, I think. So a couple of shout outs to a couple of supercars. We're not really sure what's going on with them. The Lotus Evija is limited to 130 units worldwide. The Wikipedia says as of 2023 July, cars have not yet been delivered, but they should have been out there by now. But we don't know any Evija owners, and we haven't seen any Evijas on social media. So it's hard to say. I guess we could call Lotus and ask them, but I didn't have a chance to do that last night. But it's $2.3 million also. So yeah, I'm sure not many of our viewers are going to have one or have that on their list of possible cars. It does have 4 motors, 93 kilowatt hour battery, under 3 seconds 0 to 60. It doesn't seem like it has like the crazy 2-second 0 to 60, but I'm sure it's plenty. I like the looks of this thing. It looks like a proper supercar.
Wait, Dominic, I'm sorry to interrupt your talk about the $2 million Lotus Evija. Did we mention the Nissan Aria?
We did not.
No.
Was that because I believe it was first deliveries happened at the end of last year.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
someone had just commented they were really mad that we forgot the Aria.
Oh no, I definitely didn't. I spent many hours yesterday methodically looking through every and trying to stay on focus, from like 9:30 in the morning till like 2:00 in the morning, except for a couple hours. I was pretty much focused on looking up cars.
And people think that we might just throw this show together. Dom prepares this show meticulously, and this week is, an exceptional case, and next week will be as well.
And then we ruin it for him.
And then we do. Yeah, this is perfectly produced, and then we just talk crap. But yeah, so if you haven't hit the like button yet, and you haven't supported the show, then that's always an option if you want to, and if not, that's okay as well.
Sure. So moving on, one last car. So this has been out for a while, but the first delivery in the U.S., which is kind of the metric I'm looking at here, is the, ready for this? My favorite car ever, the Rimac Navara.
You got to say Rimats. You've got to say Rimats.
I do. Oh, well, I was like being American there for a second. Rimats Navara. Rimats. Yeah. I didn't even put any information down about this car. It's like also 2.3 million. They're all sold out.
But how does it feel to be the first customer, Dominic, to take delivery of your Navara in the U.S.? Are you enjoying it?
I would have to ask, what's his name? Tom? No, that was the first. Okay, let me pull up this.
But there have been a few delivered in the U.S. because I was there for one of the deliveries, and it was a black and green sort of special edition one.
Was that the one in Ohio?
I think that went to the Hamilton collection. I was at one in Pebble Beach where it was delivered, and then they went out with mate and did donuts in the parking lot, which was great.
That's great. Yeah. Oh man, Rimac is really like, mate is just great because they'll do donuts in a multi-million-dollar car because cars are for driving, right? They're not museum pieces, and right. I don't know what to even say about Navara, but it's an amazing car. It's like the peak, basically, of EV electric vehicle innovation. I think, in many respects. Also,
Lucid Air Sapphire launched this year.
Yes,
sure.
I know it's a trim,
it's a trim, but
pretty cool, pretty amazing performance. I have not driven one, but seems like almost, it's not quite Navara, but almost Navara, maybe beating Navara in certain ways.
Okay.
Levels for like an eighth of the price.
Well, there's a video.
Yeah, Navara versus Lucid Air Sapphire. That'd be cool.
Yeah. So if anybody out there happens to have a Navara or Mate, if you're watching, we got some video ideas we'd like to put together. Anyway, so I guess this is probably our longest show ever.
2 hours.
Yeah, we should probably put the end of the show. But thanks for hanging out with us in 2023 and helping us get a start on our new batteries included platform. And yeah, you all have been great. Really appreciate your watching and viewing and clicking and sharing and all that stuff. We need to really grow in 2024 to make this work, and some challenges ahead. But let's do this thing, I think, is what we're going to do. And we'll start next week in 2024 by looking at everything that's coming. Yeah. But if you have any comments or questions about this show, please leave them below. If you have it, or if you want to get in touch with us, you can hit us up on the social media platform of your choice. Don't forget, if you like the show, click subscribe. Yeah, do all that. Hit the bell icon for notifications, but of course, give us a thumbs up. Thank you, Will, for that donation. We really appreciate all your super thanks and your donations. There's some generous people out there, and we do really appreciate it. Thank you all very much for joining us once again, and we'll see you all again next year. Ciao.